Looks like the right time. Okay, here we go. Yep. Good. Okay, so Parshat Naso. I'll do a piece from the Siva Shalom with you. Parshat Naso is opens with a counting of the Levium. There are a number of other laws that follow it, including the law of Nazir, which is important, the law of Sota, the unfaithful wife. And at the end, there's a long piece that deals with bringing all the agalot, all the wagons that were brought by the Nesiim. But if you look at Naso, Naso is really a continuation of Parshat Bamidbar. So, of course, you guys were here last week, so you know Bamidbar. I wasn't, okay? I'm just kidding, okay? But Bamidbar is really a count. Bamidbar means in the wilderness, but the name in English of the book of Bamidbar is the book of Numbers. Okay, Numbers. In fact, the Ramban and others call the book of Bamidbar, they don't call it Bamidbar, they call it Sefer HaPekudim, the book of counting. Because the first number of chapters really is about enumerating the Jewish people. We're counting them now, we count them at the end of the Sefer. They're enumerated once again when they're arriving before they go to Eretz Yisrael. So there's a lot of counting and a lot of the journeys that take place in between the counting itself. So the piece of Nesilas Shalom is going to focus on the difference between counting of the Jewish people and the counting of the Levium. So before I do the Nesilas Shalom with you, I just want to show you what he's going to be referencing, talking about. If you look, I think we all opened to 748, the opening of Parshas Naso. Mm-hmm. Right? Maybe you'll just take a chumash so we can just be same page together. We just look at the chumash before we look at Nesilas Shalom. Okay. 748. So 748 is in the middle of the counting of the Levium. There were three families of Levium: Kahas, Gershon, and Merari, and they each had different responsibilities. But when they're enumerated, there's a term that's used that's actually very different than the term that's used for counting the Jewish people. And if you look at we'll just look at 748 for a minute. It says, Nasos Rosh B'nai Gershon, take a census counting the sons of Gershon. This is one of the families of the Levium. And what are we counting them? So we're counting them from 30 up to 50 years old. Kol haba litzvot tzava. Anyone who comes, ba is to come, to join the legions to perform the work in a tent of meeting. Now, litzvot tzava, we think of tzava today as an army, but it can refer to an army of workers, we would say, or an army of ants. And any large number, sometimes an army. It doesn't only have to be going out to battle like we use today, like we'll say Tzahal, Tzva Gamal Yisrael, the army of Israel, the army of protection for Israel. But Tzava means a large group, but the key is it talks about Kol haba, and that's a term that's used for all the families of the Levium, all those who come to join the group who's going to do the work now in Beit Yom Moed. If you go back to the beginning of Bamidbar, there is almost a similar kind of terminology that's used for counting the rest of the Jewish people before it gets to the Levium. Why don't you go back to page 730. And I have to find the page. Okay, 730, right. So in... actually, we can go back to 726. Kol yotzei tzva. The term kol yotzei tzva is used again. If you look in just 726, verse 3, the first time it's talked, that Moshe is told to enumerate the Jewish people. And so in verse 33, you're going to count them from the age of 20 and up, kol yotzei tzva. So they're not coming bala tzva, they're yotzei, they're going out to battle. And the same thing comes up again numerous times. If you look on page 728, and you look in the end of verse number 20, and the end of verse number 26, and the end of verse number 22. The end of each tribe, we're told, we enumerate each tribe, and we're told this is the group called Yotzei Tzva, the group that is going out to the legion, going out to the group. Not only to fight, but going out to lead and going out to continue and so forth. So the term right away, you see a difference between the Jewish people are Yotzei Tzva, and the Levium are Ba'al Tzva. Okay? And the change would be because if you're looking at the difference between the Jewish people at large and you're looking at the Levium in specific, the difference between the two groups are, what would you say the difference is between the two groups? The Jewish people as a group and the Levium per se. The Levium don't go out to the army, they don't fight in the battle, they're not out there leading. They're really an internal ritual group of religious leadership that are internalized. So therefore, the Torah goes out of its way, and this is what the Siva Shalom is going to point out. The Torah goes out of its way to say that the Jewish people, when you're counting them by those who are going out, right? We're counting the people as they go out, they continue. And in fact, in the age of 20 were those who did serve. And Levim, on the other hand, are really serving as an internal army of Hashem, or an army of ritual leadership with an internal group that stays within. So that's the first difference between the two. So that's one difference between the Jewish people and Levim.
Wasn't there a rule about not counting the Jewish people? Is that something, a prohibition?
So the question is how they were counted. Correct. That's actually a very good question. How did Moshe actually count the Jewish people? Right, what does that mean? Were they counted by giving a half shekel? If they give a half shekel, you're not counting them directly.
So a half a shekel, every time you count them, you have a half a shekel?
Well, that's how the annual enumeration was done, with a half shekel. But you could account people indirectly in the same way. When you count for a minyan, how do you count for a minyan? You say, what pasuk do you guys use in Sephardi land? Same pasuk, use a pasuk to count 10 people, 10 pasukim, 10 words in the pasuk, as opposed to going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? The idea is that we try not to count people and give a limit to an individual, so we count people indirectly. So however we're counting, we're still coming up with the same conclusion. So in other words, if they give a half shekel, they would count them this way. But that's one way to get around it.
But when they were asking for the ages, I mean, when it says from 20 to 50, how do they know who was 20 and who was 50?
I imagine it was
they had to count them.
I imagine if they give the half shekel, people from the age of 20 gave the half shekel. Those who gave the half shekel were 20 and older. Okay, so if you were to do it that way, you'd have an enumeration. It's actually a very good question. But so this is just in terms of whether going in and going out. But I want to go back and talk about what the Levim themselves did, because most of what this counting for the Levim takes place in Parshas Naso. So let's go back. Let's look at how the Levim are counted. There were three groups of Levim: Kahas, Gershon, and Merari. These were the three sons of Levi, and each Kahas, Gershon, and Merari. And these were three different groups, and we want to identify actually what they actually did. What were they responsible for? Because we're now talking about how the camp is going to transport, so it talks about who's going to transport, who's in charge of what. In other words, when you take down a camp, you've got some people in charge of the tenting, some people in charge of the merchandising, some people in charge of, the kiosks, some people in charge of the grounds. Everybody has a certain role. So let's go to page 744. Let's go through this quickly so we can get to Nasir Shalom. 744 talks about Gershon. So, in chapter 4, verse 1 and 2, God speaks to Moshe now and saying, Nasos Rosh B'nei Kahas, you're going to count now, take a census of the sons of Kahas, Mitoch B'nei Levi, from the tribe of Levi, 744, chapter 4. Okay, according to the Mishpachot, according to Beit Avotam, and from the, once again we said, the age of the Levim is from 30 until 50, and Kol Abal Atzavah, this we told you already before, they're coming in to battle, they're calling them in, they're not army really, but internal. And what do? Zot Avodat B'nei Kahas, this is the Avodah of the B'nei Kahat in the Ol Moed, the Kodesh Kodashim. What are they going to do? So they're going to really put covering over some of the items that they're going to carry. And they're going to carry in verse, they're going to cover over the Parochas HaMasach in verse number 5. They're going to, verse number 5, yes. They're going to take down the paroches that covers the Aron HaEdus, and they're going to cover the Aron HaEdus. The sons of Aaron will do that. They're going to put different types of covering on this, a covering of a tachash animal, and they're going to put another beged of tchelas on it, and they're going to put badav, they're going to put on it all the utensils that go with the Aron HaKodesh. They're going to take the shulchan upon him, they take the shulchan, the big table with the showbread, they're going to put another covering on that in verse number 7, a beged of tchelet. They're going to put all the items that go together with the shulchan, the karot, the kapot, how they translate these, all these plates and utensils in verse number 7, the shelving tubes and the pillars and the menakiot and ksos nasech and the lechem upon him. The showbread was actually going to stay on the table, and they're going to put beged on top of that, some other covering on that, and then they're going to cover in verse 9. They're going to cover the menorah tama'ar, the neiroteha, the malkochel, the different parts of the menorah, and all the utensils of the menorah that were there. So the people of Kahat had the most important, significant role. They dealt with the large items of super sanctity. They took the Aron, They took the shulchan, they took the menorah, they covered them up, they were prepared for transport, and they were the ones who were responsible to carry these items. So that's the job of who? The people of the Bnei Kahat, and that's really what goes through in this, and the Mizbeach, I should say. I'm sorry? Aaron is not from Kahat. Aaron is from Kahat, yes, Aaron is from Kahat. But Aaron is a Kohen. We're talking about the Levium, right? Aaron and his sons are different status. We're talking about the Levium who are from the family of Kahat, besides Aaron. So they have the Mizbeach as well. So they have here the Aaron, they have the Shulchan, they have the Menorah, and then they also have the Mizbeach, which they're now going to transport. This is the Mizbeach that was inside, where they put the incense and spices on. So, and they took all the utensils and took them as well. And who took this? The tribe or the families of Kahat. Okay, they had the most mechubad kind of thing to do. That was the first group of people, and we're told that their job is we're counting there for the avodah, and they're going to do this for carrying this to do the avodah. Okay, then let's go to Parshas Naso. This Parshas Naso actually begins with the second of the three families. So what happened in Parshas Naso on page 748? You have the tribe of Gershon. This is beginning in Naso on page 748. What's the tribe of Naso? The family of Gershon. What is their responsibility to do? They're going to take in verse number 25. They're going to take Yiriyot Mishkan, the curtains of the Ol Moed that covered the Ol Moed, that covered the Mishkan, the Mechseu, all the coverings over the Ol Moed, all the curtains that were on the side of it. They're going to take the Masach, they're going to take the Prochus that was in front between the Kodesh and Kodesh Kodashim. They're going to take Kalei Chatzer. They're taking the hangings, the Masach, Pesach Sharacher, Shal Mishkan, V'Mizbeach Saviv, Meitrehem, all the items that went together with that, the roping that kept them tied down, the Meitrehem, the utensils that were there, and Kol Klei some all the other utensils that were there, they collected and they took in. Who takes this? This is done by Gershon. Okay, so what is their responsibility? So their job is to be able to carry that. And when it talks about the Bnei Kahat, the Bnei Gershon, it says their job is the second group. That's the second group. So if you look on verse 24 of that very same page, it says they're going to do Lavod Avodah B'Yom Moed, to do the Avodah in Yom Moed, and Zot Avodat Mishpachot HaGershoni Lavod L'Masad, to work and to carry. When it comes to talk about the tribe of Kahat initially, it only talked about Lavodah, to do work. So the Kahat, which has the most important, had Avodah. The next group, which is a lower group, it's not the super holy things. They're not carrying the Aron, they're not carrying the Shochan, they're not carrying the Menorah, not carrying the big Mizbeach, the Mizbeach inside the Kodesh. They're carrying which is for Avodah. They're carrying something that's smaller. They're more supporting kinds of mechanisms that were around the Mishkan, the curtains and all the hangings and the coverings. They were all wrapped up and they carried them. And this is Lavod U'Lamasah, to work and to carry. Okay, so you see, there's another difference, not just in what they're doing. The super sanctified is called Lavod, and the second one is Lavod al-Masah. The third group is a group of the Bnei Merari. Now, Bnei Merari had probably the hardest thing to do. In fact, they had wagons which to carry this. They had to take around the Mishkan. Mishkan was made of different planks that were put together. Right, and there was rods that went through them to keep them together. These big planks were put onto wagons, and these wagons were actually later brought in the parsha by the Nesiim. So they had these heavy planks that were really put onto the wagons. They had to load them up, and then they had to move the wagons along. The wagons went very slowly. And if you look in Bnei Merari, I'm sorry for going through the details, but you'll see when we get to the Nesiva Shalomite, it's important. If you look on the bottom of the same page in 748, you have Bnei Merari, the children of Merari. What's their job once they get 30 to 50 years old? This is what they're going to do. And what are they going to do? This is what they have to do. They're going to take the Karshei HaMishkan. They're going to take the pillars of the Mishkan, the planks and the pillars and the sockets all around it, and the Amudei HaChatzer Saviv Yad Nehem. They're going to take the pillars of the courtyard that went all around, that anchored in the different curtains that went around the outside courtyard. You say, so they're schlepping these big heavy planks of wood, and what's their job to do? So Zot Avodat Mishpachot B'nei Merari Lachavod Sam B'Yom Moed B'Yam B'Yisam B'nei Aaron of Kohen, and we are told. What am I looking for? And we're told it's Mishmeret Masa'am, that they're doing the carrying themselves. So the term that's used in terms of B'nai Merari is not so much Avodah, but it's more that they're doing the carrying the work, where for B'nai Merari they're carrying the Masa'am, they're carrying this. So, this is, if you look in verse 31, it talks about V'zot Mishmeret Masa'am. This is what they're carrying. It's no longer really called just Avodah, it's Masa'am. If you look on the bottom of the page in verse number 33, Klei Mishmeret Masa'am. They're doing this, they're carrying, they're really like the schleppers. So they have the most difficult work, and it's really more supporting mechanisms to the supporting mechanisms. They're the real, the chamorim, so to speak, of the Mishpachot Levi. So you've got a real differentiation between the B'nai Kahas, who are doing these major big items that you identify with the Mishkan as the most holy parts of that, Menorah, Mizbeach, Aron, and Shulchan. You've got the secondary group, which is the B'nai Kahas, which are dealing with a lot of the other utensils that are around the Mishkan. They're putting that as well, the curtains and so forth. The curtains is already, you have to have a little bit of chachma how to pack curtains. If you've ever moved, if you know they have like wardrobe boxes, you have to hang up clothes. If you have people coming in to pack, how they pack things together, pack wardrobes. On the other hand, you've got this third group of B'nai Merari that they seem to be like they've got all the heavy schlepping to do. And they're the ones who are carrying the big pieces of wood. They're the guys who are kind of the guys who are setting up the tents.
The strong guys.
The strong guys, right? And it's not just that. It's actually interesting when you look at counting the tribe of Kahas and tribe of Gershon, the first two groups. So Torah identified them Naso as Rosh B'nai Kahas. Count the leaders, the leadership B'nai Kahas. Same thing for B'nai Gershon, Naso and Rosh B'nai Gershon. When it comes to B'nai Merari, it doesn't say count the Rosh B'nai Merari. What does it simply say? B'nai Merari, the people of Merari, the rest of the guys. So there is this hierarchy. It's clear. It jumps out at you, and you couldn't jump ship. You couldn't say, I wish I was, I'm from Merari, I wish I was from B'nai Kahas, I wish I was from B'nai Gershon. They didn't choose this, but they didn't really choose across the board. I'm sure within Merari, they chose the heavier kinds of guys who do the greatest schlepping, and so forth. Now, Merari actually did have wagons that they were able to load stuff. They didn't have to carry this by hand. The other utensils were carried by hand. The Aron, you see the pictures of where they're carrying the Aron and it's on like some kind of staves that go through it. And the same thing with the Aron is carried with those staves that go through it, these long poles. But they were, nonetheless, they were covered, and it was a little more mechubadik in terms of what they were doing. So this is just the outline in terms of what the Nesiv Shalom is going to be presenting himself about different levels in life. Yes, Dan.
So the Dima counted once from 1 month to up.
Right. And then here the count.
Counted again from 30 to 50.
Correct. Okay.
The
the number is counted. So one, I think, is just counting from the Leviim, and the second one is counting those Leviim who would work in the base of Mikdash, who would work in the Mishkan, actually doing the actual work and actually doing the moving. One is to be enumerated. It would actually begin.
So it's not all of them?
So I guess there's going to be a different number between those who are counted from the age of 30 and up than the one from the Ben Chodesh. Correct. Ben Chodesh was more to deal with offsetting them for the Bechorim,
right,
the firstborn who were being let go from serving in the base of Mikdash, and the Leviim were taking their place. But this is now we're counting those who are actually going to be actively involved. In the same way, B'nai Yisrael, we really go to the army to fight from the age of 20. I mean, we think about Bar Mitzvah. But Bar Mitzvah is not the age of early calculation. When and this, by the way, the holdover, the prayer that we have today is when you give a machzis a shekel on Purim. We give 3 shekels, 3.5 shekels, and come to shul, and there's usually a box there for machzis a shekel. We do this because there were 3 times they counted them out, they 3 times half shekels they gave, so we give 3 shekels. Our money doesn't really have value. Our money is more of a promissory note, and our coins don't even really have significant value, so there's usually some kind of silver coins that are there. So the machzis a shekel, the minhag is that you give it from the age of 20 and up. You don't have to give it under 20. I remember when I turned bar mitzvah and I said to my father, I want to give machzis and shekel. He says, you can, but you don't have to give it till 20. And if you give it when you're 13, you got to say, you're taking this upon yourself, you'll have to do it every year. So you have to decide now if you want to do it every year or wait till you begin 20, because it really follows what the Machzis HaShekel was from the age of 20, as they were counted.
What did you do?
I think I gave it.
You waited, eh?
No, I think I didn't wait. I think I was really excited and I gave it. Well, it's a down, whatever it was, mitzvah boy. You feel this, I'm a man, I show off now, go up there, put the money in there. Okay, big spender, right? Okay. So, but I remember my father was very clear. He says it's really from the age of 20. But if you decide to take the mitzvah, you can't pick and choose. You can't say I'm doing it on 13 or 14, then you get to be 17, 18, say, nah, it was last year. You're in. So, but this is all just in terms of this. Now, we're not Levium, of course, right? Actually, I am a Levi. Anyone else Levi? But most of us are not Levium. But the Nasiv Shalom is going to take this as an idea.
No one told me. If I am, no one told me.
Okay, well, but I'm saying, but the point of it being that the Rambam actually makes a point that Levium are really about the group of Jews who were set aside for sacred service. So sometimes you can set aside yourself for sacred service, not being a Levi as well. You can't be a Levi, right? But the concept of being an internal leadership group who is involved in study and involved in dedication to Hashem in a much more time-consuming way than people who normally go out and are busy making a living is really for a group of individuals. So, for example, we talk about a kollel sometimes, or yeshiva, or people who are involved in this, or you who are coming on an ongoing basis in terms of actually trying to study. So that's just in terms of where the Nasiv Shalom is going to go. Okay, that's a long introduction, but I think you'll get an appreciation once with that basis behind. It's actually the first page that you're going to get here as it comes around. Once again, there's more pages that we're going to do today. Okay.
One more here, Rabbi.
Okay, we got plenty. Right. Okay, that's okay. Okay, just leave a copy of the Chumash. So we're going to start right at the beginning where it says Aleph. Okay, so Avodat Alaviyim. So Parsha Zu Nemar Seidat Avodat Alaviyim. I'm reading right here from the beginning, okay? In the Parsha Naso, it talks about the order of the war service of Levim, B'nai Kahat, B'nai Gershon, B'nai Mari, and he points out that there are differences between the different groups of Levim. V'yesh l'datek b'inyan ma'shakan nizkar b'katuv Naso Rosh B'nai Gershon. When it comes to B'nai Gershon, this is the second group, but it opens up Parsha Naso. It says Naso Rosh B'nai Gershon Gam Heim Leveit Avotam Lemishbechotam, and then it continues. Pasuk says Kol Yotzei Kol Abal Atzavot Litzvot Tzavah Lavod Avodah B'Yom Moed. It says they're going to come in to do the tzavah, to work the avodah Beit Yom Moed. That's about Gershon. That's the middle group. And earlier on, V'ilu le'el misbar b'nei Yisrael ne'mar b'midbar k'tiv suad rosh kol adat b'nei Yisrael miben asim sh'nov amala kol yotzei tzavah. The word yotzei is bolded out. They're going out to tzavah. So how come here it's called Lama Kan Katuv Kol Abba? Here for the Levium it says coming in, Ba is coming in, Visham, and there for Bnei Yisrael it says Kol Yotzei Tzavah, those who are going out to the Tzavah. That's the first question. Okay? And that's one question. Then he quotes actually from his father-in-law, Beit Avram. It says he had pointed out, Lama b'bnei Kahat, just skipping a couple lines, Ksiv Naso Rosh b'nei Kahas. When it's counting the b'nei Kahas, which is the first group of the Leviim, it says count the heads of b'nei Kahas, and b'nei Gershon it says Naso Rosh b'nei Gershon, the heads of b'nei Gershon, they're ahead. However, b'nei Mari, v'ilu b'nei Mari, the third group, it doesn't say Naso and Rosh, just simply says b'nei Mari, the people of Mari, the children of Mari, l'mishpatom l'veit vatam. So that's the second question. The first difference is Ba and Yotzei. The second is we have Naso for the first two groups, Levium. The third group does not say Naso. Naso, which means, by the way, not just to count, but Naso is also to raise up the heads of Bnei Gershon, the heads of Bnei Kahas, but Merari is just simply the guys. And then the third question he points out, it talks about when the Bnei Kahad says the avodah, the service of Bnei Kahat, Yom Moed. Bnei Gershon, it says, Zot Avodat, Mishpachot Gershoni, Lavod, Ulamasa, the Gershoni have to Avodah and Masa, service and also work. And Bnei Merari, it simply says, V'zot Mishmeres Matzam. This is the order of their Masam, of their carrying. So once again, you have another break in terminology. Bnei Kahat is Avodah. Bnei Gershon, the middle group, is Avodah Masa. And the third group, the lowest group, or the group of Schleppers, is called Masam. So simply what he's just going to point out is these three groups have different levels in terms of what their significance would be, or the items that they're schlepping in terms of the significance in the Mishkan. It's not to say that you could have a Mishkan with any one of these part of these items and not the others, but just in terms of hierarchy, you tend to feel greater significance to one group than the others, or the first group more than the second more than the third. So he says as follows, just going to the bottom paragraph, Mavar bazeh morano admar b'beis Avram, the merubaz bazeh al gimel dvachim b'avodat Hashem Yisbarach. There are three ways to serve Hashem. Madrigat b'nei kahas, the upper way of the b'nei kahas is shavodat hakodesh alehem haron hashulchan v'hamenorah. They have the holy work to serve God with the aron, the shulchan, and the menorah. Heim bali medrigag vohim bioter dvukim to mi b'Hashem Yisbarach. These are people who are completely and always connected to the Almighty. If you think about the identity of these items that represent the connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the aron is really where the Shekhinah rested on top of the ark. The lighting of the menorah represented once again the Shekhinah's presence. The shulchan was where we put on the showbread for the Almighty. You also had the mizbeach inside, which was where they put the spices. All of this about being connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu 24/7. V'azochim l'rot.
השולחן זה שולחן הקטורת.
השולחן is shulchan with lechem hapanim.
לא מזבח הקטורת.
And the mizbach. It doesn't list it here. No, they were separate things. Aron, Shulchan, and Aron also Mizbeach HaKetoret. He doesn't list it.
He didn't mention it.
He doesn't. Who knows Chizkir is there? Was a Gamken Yachshayach LeBnei Gad. Okay, they had that as well, and that's what we just saw that when you walked in here. So these are the items that were inside the building. They're inside the Mishkan, the Kodesh, the Holy, and the Holy of Holies. These are items that you get the feeling when you're doing the service. They're very specific items. They're very unique items. They're representative of the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu connected to the base of Mikdash, to the Mishkan, and therefore these people of Bnei Kahas, who have the highest level, they represent people who are always going to be connected to Hashem. V'azochim l'rot godol kvodo yisbarach. They're going to see the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu all the time. And that's why it says, Ve'alkain nemar tzlam v'zot asu lahem v'chiu v'lo lamusu. And that's why when the pasuk talks about them, it says they're going to do this and live and not die. Because Shtamet Kodesh Kodashim, when they go into Kodesh Kodashim, they have to make sure the Bnei Aaron would prepare properly. Ki migoldem dargatam b'avodat Hashem u'lo nashmatam lefroch mito kalot nefesh mipachad Hashem hader gono. If they got too close to it, it's like high tension wires. If you don't really wrap them with proper insulation, you can get electrocuted. You're not going to get electrocuted on a 12 volt battery system that's running your bell, or 12 volt system that runs your doorbell. You will get a little bit of a shock from 120 volts, but if you're really touching the high tension wires, you're toast, literally. So therefore, if they're going to carry those items that we identify closely with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they're close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so that's why the Torah says they should live and not die. They shouldn't really die from fright or from coming close to Hashem. That's the first level.
How you carrying the menorah?
Was covered.
How
they carried the menorah?
Yeah.
I think the menorah had within it a pole they put through it.
It's not the pole.
No?
No. Or they have a platform.
Did they have a platform?
Yeah, but they carry it.
Pictures of this here? No.
Why can't they just carry it?
Did not touch it.
So was it a platform? I don't know. Was it on a platform?
After that.
Yeah.
All right, some of these new ones.
So we're talking about this
So it
platform?
must have been some kind of platform they carried it on. Okay, yeah. Yeah. All right. No, the Mizbeach had things. Okay. Right. So the Mizbeach Zahav had things. The Aron had things. The Shulchan also had, and I guess this was some kind of platform that they carried it on, it looks like. Yeah? Yeah, but it's being carried by hand.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe this whole thing comes off this.
No, it does not come off. It remained together. It was covered over. It was covered. But it must have been carried on something that was underneath it. I'm not sure. It's a good question. So, at any rate, because they came the closest to the items that were most identified by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the concern was that they could, because they're dealing with this, quote, high-tension spirituality, maybe they could actually come and be harmed if they came too close to it. That's first level. Lamata mehem, below them, is Dargat Bnei Gershon, is Bnei Gershon, And once again, they also have times where they're closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and far away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm going to pick up here on the sixth line. Sheyesh lo gam zmanim shu meruchak umegurash minachlat Hashem. Sometimes they're away from Hashem, and sometimes they're dealing with items that are also close to Hashem. Ki pamim hu machzik mamad b'avodat HaKodesh, upamim yeshu rod mitvachek. There are items that were more significant, items less significant. There were supports, and I guess maybe the curtains were more important. I'm not sure which is more and more less important, but they're like the middle group. And then you have the lowest group, the b'nei Mori heim b'madrigan muchad. The b'nei Mori are the lowest. Shavotam ita krashim v'amudim b'vad. They carried basically the supporting pillars and the supporting sockets and the actual planks. And this is what it means. And this is actually, to play on words, he says this is what Murari means. Murari comes from the word mar. Right, it's not really the reason for the name, but he says Murari Shehem Malaim Reirut. They were full of bitterness. Why? Because what was their job? They were the schleppers.
I was wondering about that. They thought of themselves if they were upset about that. It's interesting.
Well, you know what? They were upset about that, but I guess where you end up in life has a certain amount of fate, and what your job ends up being is a certain amount of things that that may be your role in life. Not everybody is going to be a banker, and the role that you choose, if you choose the right role in life, some people work hard, some people work less hard. The role of everybody is to make the world a better place. The checkout boy at the grocery store is also making the world a better place. The way he bags your bags.
The intimation here is that everyone had their job.
Correct.
But that's easy for an outsider to say. Could you imagine being a schlepper? Like, what's a human being going to think?
So the answer is they have to say, but I got to schlep. The other people of Bnei Yisrael don't get to do any schlepping. In other words, to be a schlepper is also a madrega, because only Bnei Levi can do the schlepping. So you may say, well, it's difficult work, and wouldn't you like to be sitting back? And he says, well, but then I'm a nobody. It's like I tell you, this dream that I have, not really a dream, of course. I am a Levi, so when they will reconstitute the Beis Hamikdash, when we rebuild the Beis Hamikdash, the Levim will have two jobs. One is they're going to be singers, Shorim, there's going to be Shorim, the gatekeepers. So my perennial dream is that we're going to get there, and they say, Yeres, here's the key. You open up at 3 a.m, be here every day, okay? Well, what would I say? I say, that'd be a great honor. I got to get up at 3, I'll get up at 3, right? So I say, but you know what? But you got to set your alarm when everybody's sleeping. So the answer is, the baker who bakes the donuts, the baker who bakes the bread, he gets up at 3:00 too. And you get used to it. A, you get used to it, and B, it's an honor. So the people who b'nei Merari, it's true, they are maror. Their life is bitter because they're not getting to do the really high kavod things, but they're the support people who are really setting things up, right? So it's good and bad. But you're right. The key, I think what Jeff is really hinting on, is what I think the Siva Shalom is trying to get at, is everybody has a role in life. Mm-hmm. And the key to self-fulfillment is finding the proper role that you can do in life. And the difficult part that we have, it's a challenge for us to identify what is exactly our role. Sometimes we never find that out.
And this is why you have Hashem choosing who's going to do the job, as opposed to Moshe Rabbeinu trying to say,
right,
you're going to be doing this, you're going to be doing that. He's having a million arguments.
Right. This is it, and you have to accept that Korach could never accept Moshe being a leader. This is what I'm talking about.
Right.
A person
Korach could never accept Moshe being a leader. Is that what you said?
Being a leader.
Right. Korach could never accept Moshe being a leader.
Yes.
Right. Correct. Yes, the leader. Right. Correct.
But this is a tough thing, Moshe.
It's a very difficult thing because it means certain people were pre-selected. I agree. So I think there are things that you learn as you go through life. There are things that sometimes are out of your reach. Now, we grew up in a situation where we live in a democracy. You do what you want to do. You're free. You can be anything you want to be. The answer is you can't be anything you want to be. You can't be anything you want to be. I mean, I didn't go through this when I was a kid, but they do this now, career counseling in school. Now, the truth is, for kids, most kids don't really understand what it really means, and most kids may not really appreciate it, and every parent wants their child to be a doctor or a lawyer, But not every kid can be a doctor, not every kid can be a lawyer. And some kids may be better off in different kinds of professions. Some kids may be better off in a technical school. We don't have a technical school. We don't have a Jewish technical school in our community. You know why? Because the Jewish parents would never send their kid to it.
Only doctor lawyer, that's all.
That's it.
No, that's true.
When you need some plumbing, you call somebody else.
When they built the new building up in North for Chat, by Char, when they built the Char building, they actually built a very large room that they thought there was a dream to make it into a tech kind of room, like they have in the high schools, and of course it never was used. It was a dream that Paul Shaviv had, and he built it that way, and after a number of years they simply redivided it into 2 other classrooms, made it 2 labs. But it was really meant to be a very large room that you could, bring all kinds of large things and get kids to do it. But that's because parents are making decisions for kids. Well, but you're right. But being a Levi is something that you cannot become a Levi if you're not a Levi. So there is a certain unfairness. But I guess like Hakadosh Baruch Hu was saying, certain tribes were designated for certain things, and within that tribe they further subdivided them.
When he said Korach is accepted, why Hashem did after the Korach complained?
Yeah.
Hashem told me, you know what? That I taught Moshe, everybody his stick, and I show you what is it.
And Mate Aaron Korach.
Why didn't he know before?
He didn't have to do it before because people accepted it. Korach.
You see, this is accepted. You see, the Korach didn't accept it.
The Korach rebellion only happens after Parsha Shlach Lecha, where they can't go into Eretz Yisrael. And suddenly there's a deflating of what their mission was. So that's why Korach can actually come to power. That's why Korah can become a demagogue, because they could play this off the fact that all the people who felt disaffected were even more disaffected now that they couldn't go into Eretz Yisrael. Until they get to the Parsha Shlach Lecha, things seem to be running fairly well. Then the Meraglim come back and the whole ball of wax unravels. Okay, so but let's see, maybe we can leave that for Parshas Korach. Let's come back here. So therefore, so you have the Bnei Merari who are Merirus, and they feel because they're doing the difficult work and they're working day in, day night schlepping, which is not really true. They're only schlepping it while they're traveling around. When they unload the stuff and they set it up, they have time off, so to speak. So, and they feel like, he says, I'm just going to pick up maybe the next line or so, Kishar la'ol kachamor lamasa, they feel like they're an ox for a burden and a chamor for carrying difficult labor. Bavod mafrechet that the guf with work that really breaks the body. Now the truth was they weren't carrying these heavy items by hand. I told you they had the agalot, but they had to load the agalot, they had to walk with the agalot, they had to make sure they didn't fall off. And sometimes when people are in this kind of situation, once again he's trying to extend this not to the tribe of Levi, but to Jews who the Nesiv Shalom is talking about have difficult lives. So even when they come to Shabbos and Yontif, they don't have really time to relax because they're still thinking, they're so broken from the difficult week. They come to Shabbos and Yontif and that's Tzibrochen. Therefore, for Bnei Levi, doesn't see raise their head, lift them up. They don't really feel like they're ahead. They feel like they're falling behind. They feel they have a life of poverty, a life of paucity, a life of difficulty, and yet they have Shabbos once a week, but Shabbos doesn't make up for the difficult life they have. And therefore, he says that, and therefore, just to go kind of summarize the rest of this paragraph, so therefore you have different levels. Bnei Kahas is Avodah, Bnei Gershon is Avodah Masa, Avodah and Masa, Bnei Merari is Masa, which really refers to difficult backbreaking work. So these are the 3 groups that exist between Kahas, between Gershon, and between Merari. Let's just turn the page over. My fingers are getting caught. Okay. And right, and so that's about the tribe of Levi. Now the difference between the Leviim, let's not forget the Leviim, as difficult as Merari was, and you have Merari, Gershon, and Kahas, you have these 3 groups, but they are still higher than the rest of the Jewish people. V'chiluk ben avodah shel Klal Yisrael avodat Leviim, the difference between the work of the life of the Jewish people and the life of the Leviim. Shebechlal Yisrael ksiv mi ben 20 shana v'ma'ala kol yotzei tzva v'yisrael. For the Israelites, it talks about yotzei tzva, they're going out. V'amashmaut bazeh, which just means shavotam have to go fight outside. What kind of fight do we have? So, of course, Levium and Bnei Yisrael were fighting against maybe enemies. What kind of fight do we have? We're not serving as soldiers in an army. So, what is the external fight that we're fighting outside? Is outside of our neshama. And he says this really kind of hints at the fight that we have externally from within the deep-rooted neshama that we have. That's really the essence of what we are against the enemy. We're going to call it an internal enemy. He calls it external because external to the soul, which of course the Yetzer Hara. Everybody who has to go out to fight against the Yetzer Hara. Everyone has the Yetzer Hara, the dark Yetzer Hara, the dark side of themselves. Everyone's a little different. V'tavotav, and their lust and desire. Everyone's a little different. Everyone's got our own skeletons in our closet. Everyone's got the different dark side that we have to fight against. We're always in battle for it. Now, we keep talking about the fact there's a lifelong battle. The landscape changes. It changes from person to person, but we're always fighting that battle. So this is like the Jewish people who are going out. We all fight that. Everybody's involved to go fight this. Everybody's got to fight against the Yetzer Hara. However, the Levim are different. Why are the Levim different? They don't have a Yetzer Hara. Yes, of course they have a Yetzer Hara, but because, and this you may want to argue on this for a moment, but because they are more closely aligned with the service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that their internal ritual grouping who is serving in the Beis HaMikdash, they see HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence more directly, they feel the presence, they're holding the ark, they're holding the planks of the Mishkan. That's got to be impressive. So therefore, they're more in terms of in tune with their spiritual native feelings. That Levi means Levia comes to accompany, like a Levaya is when we talk about a funeral, we use the term Levaya. Levaya means to accompany someone. So the word Levi, he says, of course Levi was the name of Yaakov's son, also gets related to the concept, K'moshe Katuv, Hapam Yilaveh Ishi Elai. This is when Leah has her third child. She says, now I hope my husband will stay with me, will be with me. I had Ruvain, I had Shimon. The third son, she says, Levi. Why am I calling him Levi? Apam Yilavei Ishielai. Now my husband Yaakov will give me more attention to me, says Leah, rather than to Rachel. So Levi and Leviah and Leviah means to be accompanied, to be close, to be inseparable from that connection. So therefore, the Leviim were those people who have this closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As Moshe Kasuv Rambam Bedargat Leviim. And this is what the tribe of Levi was. So they had a closer feeling. So it's not they didn't have to fight the Yetzer Hara. They had better ways to overcome the Yetzer Hara by just seeing the closeness they had to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I mean, you have to believe that if you are going to be in the presence of the Almighty, you're going to feel closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu than a person who's not. Dan, is that a question?
Yeah, so we don't get the Yetzer Hara until we are 20?
Yeah.
Is there something like that?
I'm okay. There's a follow-up question, or there's just a...
Because then I don't understand, so why did it begin from 30?
So actually, the Gemara talks about that, because it looks like from 20 to 30, they actually trained to do the job. They were 20, they were training for the job, and 30, they actually started to do the work.
So there should be...
Or from 25,
there should be Paret Tzavah when he's 20. That's when the training starts.
Yeah, okay. So he's using this more in a general type of concept. The feeling was that maybe they weren't really fully strong until they were 30 years old.
Yeah, that's right.
Back to Dan's comment about the Yetzer Hara starting at 20.
Yeah.
Yes?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. That's news to me.
What?
You're saying the Yetzer Hara starts at the age of 20?
No, that's the question he's asking.
No,
That's what.
No, it's start punishing for guilty.
Oh, start punishing.
Right. That's why I was waiting for the follow-up question.
Yeah, because this seems to be Levim doesn't start until 30 or something. I don't know.
But-
There's a difference between...
Right, but the answer is the Gemara talks about the difference between ages. Until 30, they were learning how to become Leviim, and they weren't fully strong. And at 30, they start schlepping. It may not be that, and that may not be the difference when they actually were serving in the Beis HaMikdash. In the Beis HaMikdash, you didn't have to do schlepping.
It was the only singing in the Mikdash.
Shorim and Shoarim and gatekeepers. So they could do that, and that's what the Gemara talks about, the fact that even on the 30, they could do that job in the Beis HaMikdash. So the 30 only seems to be because the job of the Leviim primarily here, and this is what Parshas Naso and Bamidbar is all about, is really carrying the stuff. How many people do they need to sing in the Mishkan? There were no gates really. The place is wide open. It's a tent. Couldn't lock it up at night. So the major job that they have to do is really carrying these holy items and setting up and taking down. They were the movers. Now, once again, being a mover, even a mover of important stuff, is not that significant a job. I mean, you have moving companies that specialize in moving for exhibitions, right? But they're movers. They're not the guys who are doing the exhibition. They're not the featured speakers. They're not the keynote speaker at the arena, at the exhibit. Right? They're just the schleppers. But still, schlepping for an exhibition takes a higher quality than the person who normally does a move internally in Toronto.
It's kind of interesting, eh? Like now you think about the 70 nations who did not accept the Torah. Now you know why.
Because they don't want to be schleppers?
This is a big job, man.
So the answer is they didn't want to accept the Torah. They didn't know about Levium. They don't want to accept the Torah because it's a big job.
The other nations? I'm saying all this stuff to organize everything is a job and a half.
They did it 2 months.
So this wasn't. Just to bring ourselves back on track. I don't think they didn't accept it because they didn't want to be Levium. They don't want to do it because they don't want the responsibilities of their Torah. Being a Jew is a big job. Being a Jew is an immense job. Whether you're Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, just waking up every morning and saying, "I got to go live my life as a Jew," is a tremendous challenge, right? And can you imagine if you didn't have that challenge? What do you do? Right? Yes.
Lahavdil, I had a friend who 1 year was a stagehand for one of the Rolling Stones tours. And he said he felt like this was the most amazing thing that he ever done. In that proximity to them, to be able to be helping out, to setting up things going on, he felt like he was on a higher madrega than the people out in the audience. Okay? I think there's a strong parallel here.
Right.
But we're talking the Stones.
Okay, fine. So,
I hear you.
Okay? I mean, can you imagine if you were called on, let's say President Donald Trump was coming to town, they said, we need you to set up the red carpet when the plane lands. Wouldn't you run to do it? But who's going to know that? It's not going to appear in the credits on the news story.
No.
All right, anyways, okay, so this is I don't know. I remember once being at a staff meeting at the beginning of the year. It must have been October, maybe first staff meeting, and Rosh Hashanah was very early, so a lot of chopped up weeks. And there was one of these feel-good sessions for the opening meetings. Every teacher got to talk about the beginning of the year. And one teacher got up, he was not Jewish, he was a young guy, and he says, I don't know what people are talking about. I'm having the greatest time in the world. I've been working there for 3 weeks, and I really haven't worked more than 4 days or something like that. And for the Yids, the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, whether you're religious, not religious, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, still Rosh Yom Kippur. This guy says, I'm not working, I'm just sitting back and doing nothing here. Anyways, okay. And getting paid. Okay, anyways, back here at the ranch. So this is about the Levium. So, and they says this is saying that, and this is not just this, but why did the Levium not get an inheritance in Israel? They didn't. Therefore, because their job was to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So all the other tribes were divvied up. The land was divvied up amongst them. They all got ancestral lands in Eretz Yisrael. Tribe of Levi did not. They had cities, so they did not have real land that they could really work. They were not farmers because they were living based upon serving in the Beis HaMikdash. And therefore, they didn't serve in the army, they didn't really inherit, but they are Elohim Chel Hashem, they are the army of Hashem. Shnema Borech Hashem Chelav, V'hu Baruchu Zocheb Lahem, Shnema Nichel Kachav Nachlasecha. Their inheritance is the inheritance of the world. And consequently, therefore, the tribe of Levi really represents those who have the opportunity to spend time with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And just then we move to the next paragraph. It's not the Leviim alone who have this ability to be dedicated to Hashem. Ella, the Rambam writes in the end of Hilchos Shmit and Yovel, Rambam Sham, he says, V'lo shevet Levi Bilvad. So after the Rambam talks about the dividing up the land and the fact the land is going to go back in the Yovel, and you're not going to work the land in the Shemitah, and he goes through all the land, he talks about the fact Leviim don't have land and they're serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says, you know what? V'lo shevet Levi Bilvad, kol ish v'ish mikol b'nei olam, Any person, from anyone who wants to be, from any Jew, I think anyone who wants to separate himself and to serve and to worship HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to know the Almighty, and is able to throw off, to eliminate from off his back all the difficult calculations which people have to go through. That kind of person is like a person from the tribe of Levi. He's holy of holies. Levi, it's like his inheritance is to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So this is, in other words, what the Rambam writes in the end of Hilchot Shemitah, that anyone can be. You can't get the Aliyah of Levi, you can't work in the Beis Hamikdash, but you can actually make yourself holy to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When it comes to the actual work and service in the Beit Hamikdash, it's delineated to the tribe of Levi. When it comes to coming close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to spending time to dedicate it to serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to understanding HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it's open to anyone. There's democracy is available, that any Jew can actually become, the term that Chabad uses is Tzivos Hashem, the army of Hashem, that anyone can be from the army of Hashem. If anyone who wants to serve, anyone can be B'chlal Avodat Levim into the tribe of Levi. Yeah, he meant... No, he didn't really mean they meant all Jews. He's really talking about the Jewish people. He says, Kolish Va'ish, Mikol Boy. Yeah, I think he really means from anyone in the Jewish people. He's not talking about non-Jews. So I guess a non-Jew could become... Yeah, so it means a non-Jew can convert to and become a Jew by choice and become close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? So we have very, very great... very great examples of people who were Jews by choice, who became tremendous examples, shining lights about people who were very close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm sure you probably can relate to and identify with them. I once knew an individual many years ago, and I did not know he was a Jew by choice. And he was one of the first people who came to Shul. His name was, I believe, Yaakov Abramson. And I had no idea that this was not his original name until he told me that he was a Jew by choice. And of course, he took the name Yaakov, and he called himself Abramson, right? Ben Avram. His name was completely different before he became a Jew, and he'd been a Jew by choice for many, many years. And I just was really impressed how much of a level he had reached in terms of setting an example for Jews who had been Jews their entire life, because it meant so much to him. Okay. Let's see where I want to go here. Okay, so the next piece he actually talks about in one of the places it talks about avodah. It talks about avodah. I forgot, it's in terms of the tribe of the family of maybe Gershon. I think it says they're going to do avodah. Lavod avodah, and then it says somewhere else, lavod avodah.
There, huh?
Right, lavod avodah. So lavod avodah, and someplace else says lavod avodah. I'll find if I look long enough. Okay, not important. But what he's trying to say, sometimes there's doing service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then there's doing service to do the service. So it's not important where I find it. I know it's in this parsha here, but the idea that you can serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then you have to do the service to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, how can I describe it? You have to eat, but you have to prepare the food. So preparing the food, you can't eat unless the food is prepared. Whether it means you go to the supermarket, or whether it means you start from scratch, or whether it means you're the farmer and have to harvest it. So therefore, when the Torah talks about the fact that the Levim were going to do avodah, they were going to do the avodah of the avodah, he says that means preparing for doing the preparation. So I just want to do one piece in this paragraph here. Thank you. You're tzaddik. You're great. It says, Kol haba lavod avodat avodah v'avodat masa b'yol moed. This is towards the end of the listing. And I'll just read the pasuk again. Those who are going to do the work, how they translate it, perform the work of service. Avodat avodah, the work of the work, the service of the service. So if you go down to the next paragraphs towards the end, and it's 2, 4, 6, 8. It's 9 lines from the end of that paragraph on this left side. It says, "V'zehu perush avodat avodah." Everybody sees shelafnei kol avodah v'chol inyan sheyudi nigash lasot lefnei Hashem yitbarach. Before a Jew goes to do every service. Do you have it, Jeff?
No.
It's about 9 lines on this side here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the first word on the line is pei yud.
Yeah, got it.
Perush avodat avodah. Shelafnei kol avodah v'chol inyan sheyudi nigash lasot lefnei Hashem yitbarach. Yesh mikodem avodah shalachana. Before you do the service, you have to prepare the service. We saw this yesterday with Rav Kook. He talked about preparing before you daven. Right? You can't just open up and daven. Mitpalalim sheichavnut libam lavim shbashmam. You prepare that usually your heart should be intent in serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he quotes here from the Rebbe, the Saba Kadisha of Lechavitz. Shebitzirato hoyimet yageh shaot rabot bevakashat v'chofet yisrael l'shtabed lach. He would work hours, he said, would struggle for hours in his request to make his Yetzer Hara bent over to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'chofet yisreinu l'shtabed lach. To force his Yetzer Hara. God, help me force my Yetzer Hara to serve you. Ukayom, and later in life, who said Zeh be'heref ha'ayin. And later in life, he was able to say that. He could do that very quickly. He had already trained his Yetzer Hara, as if to say, to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Uka'amar parshazu shayechet tamid shekol yudi asher nesali bo v'nadvar r'chol yechol l'tgayetz v'limanot achel Hashem. Everybody can do this. Everybody can work on this. B'chol ha'medrikot gavoa me'al gavoa, higher and higher. So everybody can actually do this, and this is what we have to actually try to do in terms of preparing for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In the next paragraph, he talks about the fact that this happens on Shabbos, right? You could be there. Shabbos is there, okay?
So where is that?
Say v'hinei moran admor b'eisavam zechuzah again l'amar v'ani tefilati lecha Hashem eitz ratzon. When I pray to you HaKadosh Baruch Hu for a time of ratzon, ki b'chol Shabbos yesh eitz ratzon b'shalosh sudot. And even on Shabbat, you know, he said this multiple times that there are different levels of Shabbat. There's Friday night when you just crash into Shabbat, and then you settle down. Shabbat day, you've reached a higher level. It's really sunk in. You can focus on what you're doing, and the ultimate ecstasy is Sudash Lishit Shalashudas. That's the super time, because you've had all Shabbos to prepare for this. So he says, this is Vanit Filasi Alcha Hashem Eis Ratzon. When my prayer should be for a time of Ratzon, if all of Shabbos is great, Shalashudas is even better. Sheyesh Eis Ratzon B'shalosh Sudot, what we call Sudash Lishishu, Eis Ratzon Gadol Shabbos Kodesh. There's the time of the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Rava, the Rav, and the secrets of secrets. And the same thing he says, and this is, remember, this is RAMBAN Naso, is the week after Shavuot. So he says, when Chag Shavuot is also the 8th Ratzon Shagadol Asher Hasheva Shavuot Achar Sheva Shavuot Mimot. That Shavuot has the same type of calculation. You go from Pesach, and you have 7 weeks of trying to raise higher and higher, and then the crest is, the crescendo is reaching the Chag Shavuot. And he says that many times in the Sefer Kedoshim, they say Shavuot is from the term Shavua, taking a vow, not the 7 weeks, which is really what it means. He says it also comes from taking a vow. What's the vow? That now we've prepped ourselves, we can actually fly high and actually do this and get coming closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So this, yeah.
Is that why you say talking on the 14th day of Sivan? Because you're sort of winding down, you're reaching, it's like you're getting married, like you're receiving the Torah, and then you don't say talking for a week, and then you resume on the 14th.
So actually the reason, it's actually...
Some people say that,
right.
I don't know, I read that.
So the reason is because that for the week after Shavuot, they brought the korbanot that they had to bring on Shavuot. Every holiday you had 7 days to bring korbanot. So however, Shavuot was only 1 day. So they couldn't bring all the korbanot. They brought them, there was no chalamoid. So the week after Shavuot, the next 7 days, they would also bring the korbanot. So therefore, some communities have a minhag that they don't say tachnun on the week after. But I guess to some extent, the fact that we could bring the korbanot also relates to the fact that the spirit of Shavuot is still there. We're still riding a high. We're still on the wave.
So some people say it's like a marriage, like you have Shabbat. So
that's very clever.
You're waiting 7
That's good.
days.
Very nice thought.
That's
great.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good. That's good. Actually, it's a very nice idea.
Yeah.
So therefore, we have a week that we have our Kadosh Baruch Hu. We're married together, and after the week, well, we don't get divorced. We just we're old hat, and we go back to a regular routine. Good. There's one more paragraph that I think I want to do here. Okay, I'm just saying there's one key paragraph in terms, because he goes back again and talks about, extends this really to all kinds of levels of life that we are. He actually says that, you know what, if you extend B'nai Kahas, B'nai Gershon, B'nai Merari to different types of people, he says you actually can extend it one further point. Sometimes within every life within our lives, we can be different Kahas, Gershon, and Merari at different times. In other words, we can't just say it's not just only that we get locked into that kind of thing, that we're going to be schleppers our whole life. We can break out of the schlepping. I don't mean breaking out of schlepping. I mean breaking out and getting close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because what he's trying to say, the guys who are schlepping are so involved in just this back-breaking labor, they can't focus on the Almighty. So sometimes you can go from being a Merari to a Kahas, or from a Kahas to a Gershon, from a Merari to a Gershon, from a Gershon to a Kahas, or you can go the other way around. No, there's this change that you can actually build in your life. If you're so fallen, you're so fallen down, you're so kind of broken down because you got so many difficulties in life, you can still break out of it. Shabbos is one example, but even within your life, you have the ability to kind of jump levels. Not to work in the Beis HaMikdash, right? Not to be a Levi, not to be a Kohen, but you can break out of that level in terms of coming close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's what he tries to talk about in the next piece. And then he says, the real way to do this, though, is you got to work slowly. You got to work from down to go up. In other words, you can't simply try to get the highest level. You got to make sure that you kind of build slowly with a foundation, and on the foundation you build higher and higher. You can't simply say that I'm going to... let me give you the example, and then we'll do the piece in the Siva Shalom. The example I gave about the Kasak, right? A Kasak can't go from one day being a Kasak to the next day being a Tzaddik. Right? But the Kasak who goes to the village, who rapes, pillages, and murders, what can he do? The next village he goes to, he says, I'm just going to rape and pillage, I'm not going to murder. Right? And then when he comes to the third village, he says, I'm going to make another improvement. I'm only going to pillage, I'm not going to rape and murder. And he comes to the third village, he says, well, I'm just going to be a Kasak and just make trouble, So eventually you move up by level. So he's saying the same thing. When a person wants to kind of jump to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you got to have a strong foundation. You can't build the upper level with having a strong foundation, otherwise it comes down like a house of cards. So that's what he says. So these three levels, he says what he's saying, if you make, remember he's extending this in a way that's outside the Pshat. Pshat is about Levium, the jobs Levium have. It's about the job the Jewish people have. He's saying more than simply walking in the desert, every Jew has an ability to fight the Yetzer Hara. Even if you're a Levi, you got to fight the Yetzer Hara. And even if you're a Levi on the highest level, you still have the Yetzer Hara, but you can kind of raise your level higher and higher. He says, but the way to do it is to go slowly from one to the other. And that's why he says when the Torah kind of builds, even the Torah goes out of order. First it talks about the Jewish people and counting them. Then it talks about the Levium, which is on a higher level. So let's just do one more paragraph here. It's on page Chaf Hey on the left side. Chaf Hey on the left side. Aklal b'seder avodahu milamata lamala. Everybody see that? This is where he now talks about the fact that everybody can have different levels and you can jump levels. From down to up. It says the statement, I guess this must be a folk saying, that the world can't fall. You can't fall off the land. You can fall out of the sky. You can't fall out of the land. But you start with the land and build a strong foundation. All beginnings are very difficult. No, we have a rule. The beginning part is very difficult. When it says all beginnings are difficult, it means when you start the beginning to make change, you're going to do the most difficult part first. If you really want to start to make change, you've got to look at yourself as a person who's trying to get close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like the Leviim, like the Merari people. To recognize you got to work hard in this world, and you can't just simply leave this world behind. You can't really simply say, do I enjoy this? Or I'm going to leave it all behind. You got to work slowly, each level, to try to improve yourself. Like a person who has been drafted to serve in the army, he's got one purpose, which is you're serving the army, you're serving the commander-in-chief. In this case, you're serving the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You have to remember that no matter what your job is at this moment, your real ultimate job is to serve the commander-in-chief, to serve your general, to serve your commanding officer, in this case the Almighty. Gershon. So first you go from that lowest level of being a B'nai Merari, which you're really working hard, doing difficult work and struggling to get the grounding in terms of coming to understand the Almighty. Then you can begin to build up in that, bump up a level to B'nai Gershon, bump up a level to B'nai Kahas. You start with the higher pieces, right? You just simply have the upper floor without the basement. It's like someone once said to me, it's a bit of a grub analogy, but I'll say it anyway. Okay. Once you say that, you have to say it, right? A person that puts on the overcoat without putting on his underwear. So, okay. All right, maybe I shouldn't have said it. Okay. I'll take it back. Please strike it from the record. No, the person, you can't get to the top floor unless you build the foundation right. So you can't put on the outer layers until you put on the inner layers. If you kind of simply do the stuff and you're really not rock solid internally in the bottom, then you won't last. And therefore it talks about the Jewish people going out to fight battle. The Jewish people, Besur Meirad, to fight against the Yetzer Hara. The oyev, the enemy won't get inside. Once you kind of reach the level of the Israelites that you fought against the Yetzer Hara, you can then turn to being the avodat leviim, which is called abala tzava basei tov, to do good and come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Matchil b'chol koshod, you do the hard work. B'chinat b'nei mari, v'lech metalet shmagil b'chinat b'nei kod avodat kodesh HaKadoshim, until you go higher and higher and higher and higher. So building one on the other. That's where the key of Nesiva Shalom. I think it's a masterful piece because he takes, of course, what really is fairly boring reading of the Torah, which is really counting numbers, and he draws out an analogy, of course, to the life of all of us. Okay, we'll stop here, take a break here. Good.
Amazing.